So instead of buying something cheap online for an arbor for slot saws and cutting gears, I decided to go to one of the reputable dealers in British Columbia and pick something up from them. Unfortunately, this is what I received. It was not good in any way whatsoever. So I did decide, well, perhaps I should just build my own using this as somewhat of a template, plus also looking at some of the work other people have done online. I came up with an idea that I think would work pretty good. So the first thing, of course, is to select some metal that I figured will be good. My first choice was that steel, high carbon steel, but then I decided to go with something small, a little bit smaller in diameter, so I wouldn't be wasting as much material. Eventually, though, I did go back for some of the parts of this build on that high carbon steel that just produces a better finish, in my opinion, and I'm sure in everyone else's, than going with a low quality steel like that. So on this build, there needs to be the arbor body. Above the arbor body, there's another body that will hold the plunger itself, then the cap for the plunger, and there is also a retainer that keeps the plunger from going in the top. And beyond that, a spring to keep some tension on it. On this, the first cut here is actually to thread that bottom so that the plunger body or the barrel that holds the plunger body can be screwed into the arbor. I got the dimensions on there, and nextly to drill out the part that's going to go in the plunger body that the plunger will sit on, and tap that as well, and get that down to size so it'll fit fine. For the threads on this project, it's really, really tight, and I basically decided to go from the left to the right thread and turn in the lead screw in reverse to produce left-hand threads on the entire project. The other reason for this was as that blade is turning, I would want to ensure that everything's maintained and tight and not loosening up with a blade, going at 1500 RPM or whatever the speed may be at the time. The the threading of this, of course, started off with one of my you know cheaper taps, and moved over to one of the better taps later on, which just makes a huge difference in my opinion on how all that thread is and how easy it actually taps. Putting this screw in, it just goes right snug to the bottom, pretty much without any resistance whatsoever. On this project, after this is done, the next thing is to thin down that neck a little bit to be able to put it in the plunger, and then of course put the taper on the back here, and then cut everything down and get the R8 taper on the bottom of this, and then of course give it a little chamfer and get it threaded. So when it's going into the milling machine, the drawbar will fix into it and snug it right up and keep it from doing what the one I bought actually did, and just not wobble around like that. All in all, some of these parts definitely had to get made two and even three times, due to the fact that I just missed the thread, and just it just wasn't as tight as it should be. Would it have been acceptable? Yeah, probably, but I definitely am grateful for going back. So there's the top of that R8 arbor with, of course, the extended part on there so it can actually get threaded with the blade on the top. From there on, it's just a matter of turning it around on the lathe and getting the tail of that cut off, and of course chamfered and drilled and tapped. After that, the next part that was going to get built is the barrel that holds the plunger. Um, the precision on that barrel was quite necessary to make sure that that plunger went up straight and didn't have too much in the way of play on it. Uh, that right there is the start of the barrel, and I think I ended up making this part at least twice. Um, Stuff just didn't work out the way I wanted to. Of course, when I figured out what I was actually looking for here for tolerances, that and getting it drilled out, the next part I had to do after finding the depth here was bored out to the proper dimensions for that plunger to go up and down, and the plunger had to be big enough to accommodate the different size slot and saw blades I had, and as well accommodate the future gear cutters that I plan on getting on it. After the boring, the next thing was just putting some left-hand threads again on this, so it all tightens up to something that'll actually get tighter as it runs instead of looser. And after running it for about 2 minutes, that thing is almost impossible. Well, I haven't been able to take it apart. It's probably going to have to get put in the milling machine and have some slots cut on either side to get a wrench on to get it apart. Now that's how tight it is. So one side there was just threaded in, and then back onto the other side to just get the boring in there to make it larger than the side that was threaded, um, in so that the plunger can actually go in. The next step here, is just threading the cap so the cap can sit on top. This part here, it was a very interesting part to make, and I did have to make, I think, three of them. The first two, they were not bad, but they were a little loose on the thread. The third one that I made, and at this point, I started making the threads first, and the third one I made was just absolutely perfect, and the two parts just went together, no problem whatsoever. The plunger here, as you can see, it's just a matter of doing a little bit of measurements, doing some test fits, and I started in the back, cutting the different dimensions going forward. And eventually, when I got to the very front for the smallest blade, as you can see, it's pretty much flush right to the end of that piece. And of course, I was all happy about getting this done and being good. And I pulled it out of the lathe just to realize I forgot to cut the hole in the center. So back in the lathe it goes and cut the hole in that, get it all ready to go. And then, as you can see here, it fits really nicely into the barrel. So it's just going to be a spring in behind that keeps that pushed up forward enough that when you open it up, you have the ability to put a blade on or any one of those different lips as you need. And for that, got it cut with a drill, then had to come in a little later on and actually do some boring on it to make sure that it will fit over top of, I guess, for lack of better words, the rod that's on the bottom part of the R8 arbor. And then it's just a matter of, making the spring and making the cap and getting everything assembled and making sure it works right. The the cap was pretty straightforward. As far as the spring goes, though, I did watch some YouTube videos on how to cut the spring, and short of making a little jig to tie it down and wind it up on. I'm just hoping that we don't have to do that in school. The spring was a miserable fail, but it does work, so I'll take that. This is actually, the cap getting cut here, and right now all I'm doing is just putting a bit of a chamfer on the top of it. The bottom has been bored out so that the the plunger will fit in there, and of course I have to, put somewhat of a chamfer on the top for that screw to actually fit down in there and be nice and snug and not be sitting, out of the bottom of the cap. So this is the start of trying to make a spring. And basically, what I did when I was cutting the plunger is I just decided on one of the narrow parts of the plunger to try to do this spring, and it didn't work at all. Next thing, I just grabbed a piece of rod, you know, put it in the vise on my milling machine, clamped it down with a piece of vice grips, and grabbed another piece of vice grips to turn it around to try to make a spring out of this. And it's probably not the nicest looking spring in the world. However, it does actually work as a spring. When everything was said and done, that's what it looks like, you know. And that just goes on the top of that arbor, and the plunger sits on side of it. And when it was all built, it did what it had to do. And again, with the saw blades going on there, I'm bringing my lathe tooling up to the end of where that blade is, and that's where my next cut's going to be a little deeper for the next saw blade. So I got to pull it back, not to mess with the x-axis, bring it back in. This next set of cutting is going to be for the gear tooth aspect of this tool. From there, on the bottom of the arbor, there needs to be a slot brought up. So just with a end mill in there, I went from side to side on the vise just to get the dimensions off my DRO and center it out on this. I know, and this one would be extremely hard. Well, it wouldn't be extremely hard, but you'd have to use the vise itself to get your centers, even if you're using the proper tooling to determine the edges. This, a few passes and it's pretty much done. Just a matter of cleaning up and taking it over to get a little bit of paint on it before the assembly starts to happen. All in all, this was a fun project to do. You can see the pieces there. I think there's about a dozen, 8, 9 pieces. First thing is that barrel has to go onto the arbor. After the barrel goes on, then the spring goes down into that barrel. And once that's in, then the plunger goes in over the arbor. And then that little retaining ring actually gets threaded down on top of that to hold everything together. And it didn't take very long to realize that there was a flaw here on the plan. I was originally going to cut, some broaching on that so it'd go together nice. However, what I decided to do is take the thing apart, take it right off of the arbor, and tighten that retainer down onto it. Then flip it upside down, push the plunger up in there, then put the spring in there, and then put it on to the arbor afterwards. And that just worked out so much better and so much easier. Um, Again, left hand threads to get everything tight there. And that is basically it. Next thing, put a blade on there, put the top cap on there, and just screw it down and then dry it out. And I gotta say, I was quite impressed with that once everything was put together and it was running on the milling machine, especially in comparison to the one I bought. It was just night and day between this one that I made, and it did take a while to make it, and it was kind of like on the side job sort of thing for some time now. But it does work pretty nice, and I'm actually looking forward to cutting gears with this in the future. So next step here is just to get it up into the machine, get the drawbar down into it, and give it a try to make sure it's not as wobbly as the one that I had purchased commercially, or from a manufacturer. Now that right there, it is actually running at this point. That is the amount of deflection there is in it. You can see when I hit it with a little oil there, you can see that blade just throwing that oil all over the place. It does cut very nicely. I am, like I said, looking forward to actually using this in a project in the near future. But for now, I'm just glad that it turned out the way it did, and not like the one I bought that was commercially built. All in all, that's about it. The next little bit of the video here shows the cut that I just made there, a little close-up angle on that, and it cut good. By all means, it's going to need some oil or a little more oil. It did burn a bit on the start there, but yeah, there was the one I bought. Comparison.